Hello, welcome to Court of the Rings on twitch.tv/LotroStream. I'm your community manager, Cordovan, and I'll be with you for the next hour, hanging out, having some fun, and I have a guest today. We're going to talk a little bit about crafting, the Forester event, and a little bit more here, because I have a special guest, that being with me, Orion. How you doing, Orion? You should be unmuted now.
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Cord?
Great, great. In the background here is just a bit of a, I guess you could call it still video image, just sort of background landscape shot from Corsairs of Umbar. I was out and about taking some screenshots here as we're getting ready to do a whole bunch related to Corsairs of Umbar pretty soon. You're going to find out more about that really in the very near future here. We'll have more information about Corsairs of Umbar and Update 38, including how you're going to get to play the Mariner and how you can pre-purchase the expansion itself. I can't give you a date yet, but it's real soon. So get ready for that. But before that, we have some other things that are happening as well. Update 37.2 is expected to be released most likely next week. And that has some changes in it, including some changes to the Forester event and some other things that we'll have release notes on a little bit later. But last week's show, we had a bunch of questions about crafting in particular, with some of the crafting changes that are happening here with Update 38 and really beyond. This is a new era. Is it safe to say it's a new era of crafting?
It's certainly a new something for crafting. It's kind of a return and a forward-thinking view of how we should be implementing crafting as we move forward through the game. We certainly have we have a very long tail on crafting at this point, where you have to spend an awful lot of time going from tier 1 to tier 14, which was the Gundabad tier. And with Umbar, we wanted to change that a little bit. Because you're moving to a new area, we wanted this to be more indicative of you learning a new region's way of doing things. So part
Yeah.
of the idea behind that was that if you are a crafter of any kind, you have the general understanding and general knowledge that it would take to do the basics. So there are going to be basics that are part of the Umbar crafting set that are
If
going to,
you're a
I should say,
forester, you
system.
know how to cut wood, for
Yeah,
example.
if you're a forester, you know
Yeah.
how to cut wood. If you know how to prospect, you know that, oh, that looks like a piece of ore over there. I can probably go whack at that for a while and get something worthwhile from it.
There's no, what is this thing? It kind of looks like an axe, but it feels a little high level for me or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
We're
We're not
trying
doing
to
that.
do away with
Yeah.
that. We're trying to make that a little more. We're trying to make the entire crafting system a little more approachable and a little more uh, easier for players to get onto. At the same time, there's a lot of work that's going to have to go into retrofitting the majority of the levels. Sorry, the crafting levels that came before. Um, we know in particular that the 100 area is a particularly nasty grind that is cumbersome to really get through. I mean, there's a lot of steps that have to be taken, and there's an awful lot of materials that need to be gathered in order to get it. So the goal is to eventually be able to work back through the game and apply this kind of this new mentality as we go. It's not going to be something that is done swiftly, unfortunately, because it's a really large undertaking, and we want to continue to make forward development as we are, extending the game itself. So that will take a while, but for Umbar, at least, we're going to start
Sorry, let me real
with some
quick.
good changes.
I think they're going to hear you. I got to cut you off real quick and fix an issue in Discord.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, you're back.
Okay.
And you got
I'm back.
repositioned for some reason.
Oh,
I
that's
didn't.
odd.
I
Yeah.
don't. I didn't do anything. I don't think. I must have done something. What did I do? What did I do? All right. Well.
I bet you didn't do anything. I bet it was just
Yeah.
a hiccup.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that, folks. I just a minor blip. It was putting in Discord sounds, and we don't want that because I get a lot of them. Ding, 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 ding is my life unless I haven't muted. So there we go. All right. Okay, so let me bring back up that webpage a little bit. So there's really a couple of things we want to talk about related to crafting in Update 38. One is for existing crafters, and one is for people who were like, man, I looked at that and I don't know, I just sort of didn't do it. How do we want to onboard some people? I think this is a potential opportunity, I think, for people to quote finally get into crafting if they've been curious maybe but have been put off perhaps by some of the historic challenges that the crafting system contained.
It's a good way to put it. The challenges.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's talk to the existing crafters first, which is probably the majority of the people who are watching / listening to this. So, what do they need to know about what about my professions? What's up with vocations, and how am I going to do things?
Sure, we can start there. So vocations are just going to be split up. The easiest way to look at this is the professions that make up a vocation are still going to remain the same. Nothing will change with that. The tools that you're currently using will work, even though they say vocation on them. They're just going to work with the 3 professions that exist already. So if you have those specific types of tools, those will continue to work. Nothing needs to change at all. Universal tool sets are going to continue to work for all of the professions. It's not like we're changing anything with the vocation system or the underlying portions of the vocation system to make those stop working. So any profession that uses a particular tool still uses that same tool. None of that changes. If you had a vocation and it's now broken into the 3 professions, they are now just separate. They're still there. You're still going to level them the exact same way. When you open up a crafting node, you're going to be using the exact same recipes, the exact same UI. Nothing really changes other than when you go to a trainer, you now will see professions listed rather than the vocations listed. And I could go into a whole rigmarole as to why this was so difficult for us to actually do and why it took so long. But the long and short of it is that the crafting system was hard-coded inside of the game in such a way that we needed to excise a ton of it and then put it back into the NPCs in a manner that didn't break the remainder of the NPCs in the game. So it did take us a little longer than we were expecting.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and the good news is we got it. So it's been in testing now for quite a while. There haven't been any major hiccups, and it looks like things are moving along at the pace that we need to ensure that this is ready for U38. So there's no more vocations. You now just have professions. The one thing that is going to take a little longer is the addition, the ability to add a 4th profession, but that is still something that we are planning on integrating at some point in the future.
So just to pause a little bit on the 4th profession, what are our plans for it? Is this like the 4th of many, 4th of dozens, 4th of 4?
Well, that will depend on a couple of things. I think the biggest will be demand. If there is clearly a demand for beyond 4, I don't think that it would be impossible for us to consider doing something like that in the future. It's at this point 4 is just a better spot because there are some classes, subclasses, some crafting disciplines that do need like 2 gathering, and then they service those 2 gathering pieces service 2 production pieces. We know that, for example, scholar is an incredibly oft used profession. Just because of the nature of what scholar actually gives you in terms of potions and tinctures and everything else, some dyes, so on and so forth. So we want to make it 4 so that if there is some kind of a crossover that exists with that 4th profession that's necessary, you now have access to that. If we see that players are really clamoring for more, then there's nothing saying that we won't add more in the future. It'll be a matter of whether or not the UI can actually sustain all of the different professions being added to a single character sheet.
So we have another tier of crafting coming with Corsairs of Umbar, and it's going to work a little bit differently than perhaps people have experienced in the past, and it's part of a new paradigm to some extent.
Kind of, yeah. It really is the goal of uh, the goal of the Corsairs of Umbar crafting tier is to make it easier to continue on the crafting journey. Um, there have been a lot of questions that have come up on the forums around what does this really mean, and it basically just means that if you have the profession, you'll be able to partake in the Umbar tier immediately. There are some changes that are being made to the amount of experience that you earn from the Umbar tier. There was a question of whether or not you'd be able to pass materials off to a lower level character who would then have access to the Umbar tier and level them up that way, both as a crafter and an actual character. The answer is that we're not really changing anything that has ever gone on before with the crafting system. So you do gain a little bit of XP for the character at the same time that you're executing the recipes, but you're also earning the craft XP at the same time. The one thing that is going to be different is that the level band that you are actually constructing them in is not considered to be the 141 plus level band for the craft experience that you're earning, or sorry, I should say the experience that you're earning for the craft executions that you're doing. And that is because this is a new tier that is baseline. It is not, it doesn't have those prior requirements. So it's going to be a
Yeah.
little bit lower so that it's not something that you can utilize to really power level a character up from level 1 through 30 or 40 pretty quickly. But you are going to be able to take any materials that you pick up along the way in the Umbar tier and send them back to a different crafter if that's what you desire. I expect that I think our expectations right now are that players who are very interested in building those true crafters or building a character that is a crafter will likely take the three gathering professions for their adventurer and will send a lot of those goods and materials back to another character to craft and potentially bring those characters up along the way.
Okay. We should probably talk a little bit about gathering and tracking, and that it's going to be more of a radar map. I mean, it already is, but like it's just you're going to have the one thing you toggle it on, and anything you can pick up is just going to show up. Is it going to show up as an actual, say, blinking icon on the map, or how's it going to display?
Oh no. So we're not going to make Christmas lights. That's not our intent. We,
Yep.
we we don't want to actually make a Christmas tree that appears in your mini map. For the launch, it's unlikely that we're going to be getting new iconography that appears inside of the mini map. So all the iconography will be identical at launch of the expansion. We're hoping that early in 2024 we'll be able to update that and set up new iconography that appears for the different disciplines. So if you're looking specifically, if you turn on your skill and you just want to find, forester materials that day, you'll be able to see the wood. If you're looking just for a prospector, you'll be able to pick that out from the actual mini map too. The final implementation of this is not 100% coalesced yet. There are some questions as to whether or not we want to leave the existing skills available and provide all of the gathering professions with a new superseding or like a new superseding uh, tracking skill that enables you to adjust as you actually increase as you actually gain a new number of professions that can actually track. That is probably the way that I'm leaning because I would prefer that we don't remove the skills that currently exist. We just add a new skill in that switches up and enables you to use that if you want to. So if you don't want to be looking for scholar nodes at the same time that you're looking for prospector nodes, you can just turn on your scholar tracker and leave the other one off.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to back up a little bit talking about the tier restrictions because there's something we said in this forum thread that
Yeah.
caused some questions we need to clarify, and that is when we do go back through the earlier tier requirements, we want to, as you say, logically tie it into the expansions where that crafting tier was released. Does that mean you need to own the expansion? You must have it, purchased. You must have it applied to your account in order to craft.
Yeah, that was a question, and boy, was that a mistake on my part. So, yeah, the we're not going to if anything has always been available as part of an expansion, and it's just been free to the expansion at large. That's not going to change. We're not going to be charging for for access to the crafting system if it has always been free. Um, so that is not changing. It is really just aligning the time frame or aligning the tier or name is really what it is of the crafting tier to the expansion where it became relevant. So the Moria crafting would line up with Moria. I think that would take you from 51 to 60, yeah, 65-ish. And then, Rohan would be its own. And we move on and so on and so forth through all the different tiers all the way up to Gundabad again. And if that's a long time from now, it's not something that's going to be done super quickly. It is something that we would love to get in as soon as possible, but we do have to uh, make sure that we're continuing the development across the entire game, not just focusing on the crafting system. Although it'd be great to just be able to do that.
Yeah. We're going to have some time for all of your questions in chat as well, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the section about top-end crafting. So let's see, what should people be looking forward to here with Corsairs of Umbar? What are they
All
going to
right,
get to
so
make, and what's it going to do?
I'm really excited about the way that we're approaching this. Um, there is a dev diary that I'm working on that I need to get to you, Cord, as soon as possible so we can get it translated. Um, that will go into a lot of the more in-depth pieces of this. I can talk about it from a high level now and say that the marquee portion of this is that you are now going to be able to craft items that can upgrade over time. Now, what that means is that there are some changes coming to the overall way that the loot uh, and items are actually created. We are making some decisions along the lines of what essences do, how they are applied to different items inside of the game, and then how they specifically are used in crafting. Uh, Along those lines, we can say right now that there will be a new primary essence slot that are put on these crafting items that accept essences of main stats. So that would be your might, that would be your agility, and that would be your will. Then we are also adding a vitality essence, and that would be things like fate and your vitality. I think we're still debating whether or not just bonus morale goes into there as well. It's still kind of a question that we're not 100% sure on, because we know that player morale is something that they do prize, even though vitality for a very long time has been the one go-to essence that is put into items over and over and over again. We want to kind of get away from that, and the new crafting system here gives us some of that ability. And I know that I'm going a really long, circuitous route to get to an answer here. I apologize. I do this a lot. Um, the goal here is to make it so that these upgradable items give you a path that you take with your crafted items, and these are not limited to just gear. It's limited to some of the tools that are made. So I'll provide the example of a cook. A cook is going to make a cruet. For those who don't know what a cruet is, it's basically just a flask that you will take to age different materials, whether it's oil, vinegar, something along that line. So for us, we're kind of looking at it and saying, well, we're moving to Umbar, where there are very likely olive trees, which means that there will be olive oil. So there'll be a way to actually take that olive oil and refine it and turn it into fortified, and then even more powerful and potent versions of that. But in order to create that, you have to upgrade your cruet, and the cruet will be upgraded several times, and each one of those will then allow you to create recipes that are available through the guilds that are more and more potent, affecting a larger number of players inside of a fellowship, or in this particular case, all the way up to a raid size for a longer duration with bigger power, with a larger power spread, all the way up to being able to avoid and potentially avoid defeat when you're inside of an instance or a raid space once before it would actually then be gone. So there are some nifty things that are coming along those lines, and all of that is going to be tied directly into the craft guild itself. Now, those guilds are very much like the guilds that we currently have inside of Erebor and all throughout of sorry, not Erebor, all the way throughout Eriador.
Okay.
So they are very much like that, except for you are now learning a brand new region. So they will be new guilds where you will have to rejoin that guild and then level that guild up. The good news is that if you haven't completed the guilds previously in Eriador, we're also building in some experiences that when you do level up your guilds or gain new recipes, marquee recipes that are part of the new craft guilds in Umbar, you're going to also earn some of the materials that are necessary to advance those older guilds. So I'll stick with the cook as an example. When you earn the recipe to, excuse me, to make a cruet for the first time, you will get notes from the Umbar Guildmaster. And that Umbar Guildmaster will give you notes, the recipe, and something else that will help to contribute to your further advancement of the Cook's Guild in Umbar. You can then take those notes back to the Eriador guilds to inform them of how these things are being built so that they start to gain that knowledge too, and your reward are repasts that are now used to advance your old Eriador craft guilds, or cook guild in this particular case.
All right. Let's get to a few.
Long way to
Yeah.
get there, but there's a lot of really cool ideas that we have.
All right. Let's get to some of the questions from chat here. So,
Which one do you want to start with? I see a lot of them.
well, I'm kind of just going from the top. I'm not sure if above Manwi is questions about crafting, though. So, where there be like 143 to 145 armor, that like quest gear, sort of like Moria was like? Does that make any sense to you?
Yep. Oh, it makes perfect
Yep.
sense to me.
Okay.
Uh, so we have a 10 level spread, and the way that the area is structured, or the way that the expansion is structured, we wanted to present uh, crafters with a set. I keep saying set, and whenever I say set, I know it scares people or it gives people the wrong idea. We wanted to provide a complete recipe uh, book, basically, for each of the crafting professions at the outset of the new tier. That means that you will get yellow gear that you can craft across all the professions at the outset. These would be good from, say, 141 all the way up through probably 147-ish, where we start to lean on other systems to handle that. We are not introducing any interim complete versions of craftable gear, so you won't be able to get like 145 gear that you can craft that will be rare. Any of those one-off things will be just that. They'll be one-offs. They'll be things that you can find potentially in loot, or will be rewards that are given from just the generic questing that you're doing across the new expansion. So there will be some bespoke recipes that are available, but there won't be a distinct 140, 145, 148. The goal is to pepper in a bunch of interesting and fun things that you're getting along the way, but to enable you to assist newer players who are coming into the expansion fresh with the first round of just available crafted gear and items that are valuable to those players at the 141 mark or 140 mark.
We talked a little bit about this next question, but it's maybe worth expanding on it in specific terms. So this one comes from Hiro OK. Thank you for making it that you don't have to grind all the way to Umbar. Could you explain what the difference is between the existing guilds and the new guild of Umbar?
Sure. I touched on it a little bit, but the guilds of Umbar are basically that. They're the guilds of Umbar. So in order to learn the recipes and in order to learn in order to mimic or at least show that it is a different way of manufacture, it is a different way of production that Umbar has, we wanted to separate those guilds and make them feel like they were different. It so the idea basically is that when you move to Umbar, it's not like everything you've learned in the past is gone. It's just that these guilds operate a little differently. So you have to learn the way that their crafting mechanics work before you would actually really be able to become super proficient in them. The proficiencies will act the exact same. You'll be able to join, I think it's 2 that we can join right now. And it's going to function just like it does in Eriador. It'll just be a new guild set that's available to you inside of the Umbar tier. And like I said, the 2 will interact in different ways so that you can be leveling an older one if you still haven't capped it at the same time that you're bringing up the new Umbar tier guilds.
Cool. Seaman says currently crafting tools are locked to vocations. That's presumably going to be changing?
Yes, that should change so that any profession that can use that vocation tool functions just normally. So you should any vocation tool, you should still be able to keep it on your character, and it should work for all three professions that it was initially assigned to. If you do pick up a different profession by removing an old profession that was part of the vocation, you will need the tool specific to that one in order to use that tool. But universal tools are fine.
All right. If I was to try to put a release date on a fourth profession, would it rhyme with Bunny 23 or Bunny 24?
It would definitely rhyme with Bunny 24.
Okay. All right. So Teleria wants to know, let's say I've got a level 90 tool that's for Explorer. Will it work for other professions than those, including currently in vocations, or will it just be for the current three professions of an Explorer?
It will just be for the current three professions of the Explorer.
Okay.
Oh, I like Martin's question.
Okay.
So Martin's question is, Tilderian has a valid question. Current
Oh
metalsmith
yeah.
recipes for tools are bound to a vocation. Will we get new universal tool recipes that are similar quality, level 90, 22% crit from the guilds? The answer is yes. It will be tied the exact same way that it is now. And the goal is to make it so that you be able to combine those into the different profession sets that you are going to be able to create. Now, there's a lot of permutations there that we have to create. So don't expect that they're all going to be available at the launch of the expansion. They would be something that we want to have as fast follows for early into next year if we don't really get a ton of them done early on.
Just real quick, your mic is coming through great, but I'm hearing some kind of scraping from the desk sound a little bit.
Oh, that's probably me moving my hands. Yeah,
Yeah, it is. It's just
I'll put them in
it's
my pocket.
sensitive and it's picking it up. So
I'll put them in my
yeah,
pockets. I'm sorry.
and it's no problem. I just wanted to call your attention to it. Uh, will we gain the ability to craft basic gear for levels post 100?
So that would be an extension of the system backward through time. So when we get to those different breakpoints, yes, we would like to be able to put basic items back in. There, I don't want to rehash what's gone on in the past, and I don't want to delve too deeply into that.
Yeah.
We're in a really good spot now with the way that we've got things working from a design standpoint, and from a development standpoint. I think that we are in a good enough spot where we don't have to we don't have to do so much at the same time that some corners need to be kind of edged so that we can get things to where we need them to be. We have a much better flow of how we're actually doing the work now, and this has given us the ability to make sure that we are hitting the areas that we feel are necessary and that should have been kept up all along. That doesn't mean that this is something that's coming soon. It just means that these are ideas and goals that we have for the long term, is to be able to go back through those different groups and make it so that if you do have friends who are coming into the game at the level 100 area and you want to be able to gear them up, we want to be able to do that for you and not require all of the extra equipment or levels that you would have to get in order to use the equipment that was initially created for those crafting tiers.
Creefast wants to know, does this mean that Valard characters, people who have taken a 120, 30, 40, whatever Valar, can craft at the current level they're at? So, okay, I'm now 140. Does that mean I could craft at 140?
Not yet.
Okay.
So in order to do that, we need to have the time to figure out how that works for us as a team and a company, to make sure that we are maintaining everything that we need to across those different levels. So that's something that is a future item. It's not something that we are going to have right away. You will be able to jump right into the Unbar craft tier and craft from one to all the tier 1s to tier 14 gun event.
All right. Before we get too far along, I did want to also chat about the Forester crafting update, because that's actually coming out pretty soon here. I'm happy today to announce that it looks like we're on track. So the Forester crafting event will be making its for real this time debut at 10 a.m. Eastern on October 13th. And it's going to run until 3 a.m. Eastern on October 23rd. And this is an event that goes away for a couple of weeks and then comes back for about 10 days, goes away for a couple of weeks, comes back, and is going to be on a regular rotation, really, from the point of its debut. But we made a couple of changes to it, which is related to why we had to sort of stop it before, just as it was getting started here a couple of times, and address a few bugs. So what do we got going on with the Forester crafting event?
So the overall goal with the Forester event is to introduce profession-based crafting events that we can rotate and players can participate in whenever they're actually looking to do something that's a little bit different than their normal gameplay. I think it's a good idea. Who knows what the players are going to think? But the 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 event itself was supposed to be something that players could drive and start whenever they were there and had the ability to do so. When we got this inside of our initial testing internally, things were fine. Nothing was breaking. Everything was going well. When we brought it to Bull Roar, there were a couple of hiccups that we thought we ironed out and things looked great. The moment that we pushed this out to our live servers, where we're in that larger multi-server environment where things start to spread, and now there are new layers and there are different interactions and different speeds at which those interactions are happening, the mechanisms that I built in place just started to fall apart. Sadly, I had to go back and redo that and turn it into a timed event that is driven entirely by the event system. Unfortunately, players won't have any direct access to make the event fire. It's going to fire about every 21 minutes. I know 21 minutes is a strange time, but that's because the countdowns have to be built in such a way that there's enough of a variance between them that it is maintained by the server structure. So we've got a cooldown now that starts as soon as the event becomes active. When the event becomes active in recruiting, there's still the call that goes out. The event is recruiting. You can go to the Cove Lumber Camp, get the quest, and then speak to the NPC that actually is judging the event, and wait for a whole total of 6 minutes until the event begins. At the two minutes prior to the event beginning, anyone who is signed up will get a warning that the event is about to begin. And then after that, 2 minutes pass and the event is rolling. It goes on cooldown for 15 minutes after that, at which point the quest is no longer available, but it becomes available once the cooldown is done.
And like we said, it sticks around for about 10 days. I think it's whatever that is, about 10 days, and then is gone for about 14, comes back for 10. And eventually, our plan is to bring out other profession events, and this will rotate through them in the future. So.
Yeah, the goal is to have one for every profession, at least one for every profession. What the next one's going to be is still kind of up in the air. We haven't made a decision. If players have a desire for one, post it on the forums, and we'll see which one is the most requested, and we'll see about pushing that in. We have the ideas, we just have to get the time to build them out.
So I like cooking, and I think Iron Chef in Lotro sounds pretty great. So cooking competition.
I will neither confirm nor deny the existence of a Mithril Chef Shire spec that has existed for about 15 years. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. All right. So I'm imagining with all the talk of crafting that's been happening here in recent months, there are probably some players out there who are like, well, okay, fine. I'll do the crafting thing finally. So one question specifically as it relates to the Forester event and then in general. As it relates to the Forester event, does this mean I need to be a Forester in order to run this event? And number two, if I don't really know how to get started, what can I do right now to take part in some of this crafting here come update 38?
So in order to participate in the Forester event, you do need to be a Forester. It does require you to understand how to use the axe and not cut yourself. And yeah, I know that's weird, but It does require you to be a forester. If you are looking to become a crafter, the easiest thing to do is to go to Bree and go into the crafting hall, which is not that far away from the Boar Fountain. It's just down the hill and to the left. If you go in there, you can talk to one of the Master of Apprentices and pick up a vocation now. Come U38 and the release of Corsairs of Umbar, you'll be able to pick up a profession, and then another profession, and then another profession, choosing the ones that you actually want on your character.
Yep. All right. Great. Well, I think at this point, then we're probably ready for a general Q&A from anyone in chat. Wider things, unless you've got something maybe on your plate that you feel we should be talking about.
Let me see. Let me see.
I can't really think of anything else. I think we were pretty
No,
extensive.
no. I think we should leave anything else for the future.
Yeah. I would mention update 37.2 does have some class kind of balance and tweak and bug fix work in it, and you're at least partially responsible for some of that, right?
Yeah, yeah. In,
Yep.
in fact, one of the bigger bugs that is being addressed in there is the Guardian protection by the shield bug is fixed, so that if you are stunned, dazed, knocked down, so on and so forth, receiving a combat state, it will no longer remove the effect. It will now stay upon the skill will still stay toggled on, so it won't disappear.
Do you see further class development work happening here in the next couple of updates?
I think we're actually at the point now, and I did see that there was a question on Hunter or a comment on Hunter earlier. Uh, we aren't going to be making any more significant adjustments to the classes until probably early 2024. And the reason for that is we need to kind of let the dust settle around Mariner, or I guess in this case, we'd want to say we need to let the shoreline become calm once again, because the we know that the Mariner is going to change some of the meta, and that means that we need to see exactly how that shakes out, how their skill set plays with the other classes before we start making any more adjustments. Um, some of the bigger adjustments that are coming for the classes right now are just some damage bumps for both champion and hunter, and some correction on healing. That has just kind of negatively impacted things since the stat adjustment that we did. And the stat adjustment, while not everything has been tackled, we continue to look at that. There will be some more fixes that go in as part of the update that coincides with the release of Corsairs of Umbar. So we are looking at the future. I have actually pulled myself off of the Hunter revision, mostly due to the amount of time that I'm having to put in different areas. So on MM will be taking on that work
Okay.
in the future with using my notes as guidelines. So a lot of what is there for Hunter was there discussed for Hunter is still going to be there, but there will likely be some adjustments to at least my initial draft that are taken directly from the player feedback that we've received.
All right. Someone is asking a question. Will Mariners come with update 37.2 or update 38? I can't give you a definitive answer on that, but we will have more information about where you'll be able to play the Mariner ahead of release of Corsairs of Umbar here in the near future.
Stay tuned.
I might have just answered your question. I don't know. But, yeah.
Let's see. Oh, I know that plans and ideas for PvMP were put on ice, but is there anything planned for the Ettins in the near future? So yeah, the Edmores is in a really weird state, and unfortunately, uh, were some things that needed to be addressed outside of the Edmores took precedence this year, and it has definitely slowed down the progress on some of the work that we were doing out there. That doesn't mean we've abandoned it. In fact, a lot of the groundwork for what will start off 2024 is already laid for monster play, for player versus monster play. Part of this is being able to more agilely address the inherent differences between monsters and players. It may not seem it right now as we continue to work through a little bit of the changes to the stat adjustment, but our capacity to address any of those different problems that may exist has been reduced greatly. That means that we can make adjustments faster, potentially sometimes even on the fly, to try to equalize the battle itself that happens out in the Atmos. That doesn't mean that everything is ready to roll right now, but it is something that we are still looking at. Uh, I'm still trying to get Siege up and running. Unfortunately, there have just been other demands on my time that have made it nigh impossible to get back to it.
Yeah.
Uh, there were portions of something that uh, kind of found their way onto the landscape that had to be turned off just in the interest of time. But there are things that we have that are getting ready to be put in place that will either see the light of day very early in 2024 or a little bit later into 2024.
All right. Sounds great. Well, let's take a few more questions here. I don't think either of us are really in a good position to talk, Maywin, about when we might update older maps to the newer art style. That's really going to be a function of the art team and their pace and development ability. So I haven't heard of any plans to do that anyway. But I would not be surprised if we didn't at some point. Any news or updates on the stat changes that ended up being postponed? The postponed part of the stat changes.
So the postponed part of the stat changes were to main stat and the contributions of main stat to secondary stats, and how we were trying to move the secondary stats up into having a role again for the gear sets that players or characters used. We, after the feedback that we received, which was vociferous, we kind of took a step back and said, is this something we really want to get done right now? Is this something necessary right now? We still feel it's necessary for the longevity of the game, but that doesn't actually fit with the current track that we have. It's not really feasible in the timeline that we had uh, after the initial feedback came in to revise everything that we were planning on doing. So we had to backburner that. So
Mm-hmm.
if that comes back, it will be sometime later in 2024. We're not going to say that that's actually coming at this point because it's something that we have to be more careful about. I think when we start to try to put that back into the game, we probably need to have several rounds of discussion with the player base to ensure that we're making the decisions that make the most sense for them and for us. And we need the time really to be able to extend the those changes back through the game to make certain that the gear that is present is still viable and allows players to be able to take on the content, or any of the content. I shouldn't say the content, because most of the content is still achievable. It's just like the harder pieces of content would still need to be achievable with any changes that we make. So that is definitely postponed. I wouldn't say indefinitely. I would just say it's probably at least a year out at this point.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we'll start conversations on that earlier this time when we do start to do start to look at it.
Maywin wants to know about the possibility of a racial trait overhaul. Is that something that you could see us doing in the future?
Been discussed.
Yeah. Like many things, it's
There's
been discussed, you know?
there are some interesting ideas that we have around the racial traits, mostly because um, we are looking for ways to synergize. It's horrible corporate speak, right? We're looking for ways to synergize your characters with one another. Those legacies we think are important, and we're looking for ways that we can kind of enhance that and make that something that is available across your entire character base. I'll leave it at that because if I go too much deeper into it, it'll reveal everything we've thought, and it still may not come to fruition.
Sure, sure. All right. I can't really talk Martin or Hiroke about our 2024 plans at this time. You'll find out about them probably in a producer's letter sometime early part of next year. I'm sure we'll have some hints, as we get towards the end of this year as well. But we're not really in a position to say talk about the 2024 roadmap or anything like that at this point. So
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the 2024 roadmap until I read a postmort one for the 2023 roadmap, and then go about setting up the 2024 roadmap.
we got some
Uh,
stuff to do first. Yeah,
we do, and I will say that we have we have 2024 tentatively plotted, but we're not really ready to talk about it yet.
yeah, yeah. I know Hiroke did say no more low-level areas. I don't want to tie our hands ever as to the release of content. Ultimately, we do want to release what makes sense at the time that we have passion for and things like that. So high level, low level, anything is always on the table. But I think we've heard that feedback over the past year or so that you really want us to focus on perhaps some higher level stuff in the at least short and medium term here. And I would expect to see us largely focus on that.
Yeah, we have such a disparate player base. Right? We have a lot of players uh, who are high level. We also have a lot of players who take their time and just enjoy being in Middle Earth. Uh, we're not trying to pander to any one of those audiences. What we're trying to do is paint enough broad strokes that we catch as many of those players in our releases as we possibly can. Um, yeah, we know that endgame still needs to see its service, and we know that mid game probably still needs to see some service. I would say specifically around the Rohan region, mostly because sometimes that particular stretch is difficult for players who are not used to mounted combat and don't find it enjoyable. So there are some things that we know we would like to address, but it all takes time, and we need to be able to approach things in a manner that is best for players and for the game on the whole.
Yeah. Well, the answer is what should we be working on and when? And the answer is everything always.
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yeah. But yeah, there we go. Kind of getting into a wish list item, but what about dynamically lowering your level to the content you're doing? That would basically kind of remove the idea of what level you are, and if you wanted to go back to Riders of Rohan, you would be right kind of back there power wise.
Yeah. So on MM would right now be championing that statement or that question like nobody's business inside of this discussion. Um, I can tell you, I can tell you flatly that we would love to be able to do this. It's something that is on several of our wish lists. It's something that we think would help to inspire a lot of players to get their friends to come in because they'd be able to kick, drop themselves down and be sidekicks for them along the way. It's something that is a fierce technical hurdle, and while we really want it, uh, part of it is that we really need magic pixie dust to be able to just sprinkle on the servers and make it go.
Mm-hmm.
Because it'd be a really large investment of time. That doesn't mean we won't do it. It just means that it's something that we have to be cautious about implementing, because it could impinge upon the development of other aspects of the game. There's a couple of things I think that we really want to get a handle on first before we go and do that from our engineering side.
All right. Well, I've got a little bit of news here before I wrap up the show and a couple other things I can do. So, unless you've got some kind of questions that aren't wish listy, why don't maybe I'll say goodbye to you here in a minute. Can we get another last question?
I thought I saw one, but maybe not.
Is Umbar going to have delvings?
Not at first. So one of the goals with the delving system was that the delving system updates when raids become released and players are typically able to complete them at tier 3 and better, because we want that to be the more casual way for players to get the same type of gear. So the delvings will be coming to Umbar missions, if there are Umbar missions, when there are Umbar missions. They will just be at the same timeline that players are actually hitting tier 3 and braid.
All right. Neither of us are really in a good position to comment on user interface updates as well. It's something that we always try to do as much with as we can within the limitations that we have. So I would expect to see us continue to work on those things. And a question about free-to-play and mail working. That sounds like a task for an engineer to perhaps deal with auto bestowal for a free-to-play account.
The next one, though, from Narofind, I can answer.
Okay.
So Mariners do have a skill that can trigger Fellowship Maneuvers. Fellowship Maneuvers, for those who don't use them or have never used them, were one of the cooler features of Lord of the Rings Online at launch. We used them in a lot of scenarios early on inside of instance spaces to break the abilities that the bosses would actually have, so that you needed to do a specific action in order to remove a skill set or to breach the boss's defenses. Over time, those kind of fell off, and the Fellowship Maneuvers were, I don't want to say abandoned, but they weren't upgraded at the same rate as anything else. We have actually made an adjustment to those so that they are more potent again, and we may or may not be looking at bringing them back as an important part of group gameplay, because they are kind of a nifty feature, and it's something that if we can find a way to speed up the interactions on them, we would really like to start integrating them back into the general group gameplay and group dynamic.
That'd be sweet. That'd be fun. That'd be great. All right. I think really, Lyron, you're talking about a couple of different things there related to being able to read the mail directly as free to play. You're asking about a perk currently being offered to VIPs being expanded to free to play, and then there's a technical question about how specifically you would do it. So, say a direct answer from an engineer may not be likely at this time. They would need to be presented with the problem to solve first. But you're welcome to make a suggestion about what you'd like to see for free to play players and others, and your question on the forums. I can't guarantee an engineer is going to answer you, though. Sorry. All right. Well, I think I'm going to let you go, Orion. Really nice to see you here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.
y'all later.
And we'll talk to you, I'm sure, at some point here in the near future.
All right. Take care, everyone.
All right, before I wrap things up today, I have a bit of video to show you. So a little bit of news here as well. But I did want to get this up. Let me make sure I'm pushing the right buttons, though. So first off, this goes away. I'm going to turn my camera off, and I'm going to play you a video. Back in a minute.
Mariners have a noble history in Middle-earth. From Earendil of old, to the voyagers of Numenor, and on to the sailors and corsairs who now navigate Middle-earth's coastlines. Shunning heavy weapons and armor as unfit for use aboard ship, they excel as cunning duelists, masters of innovative tactics, and callers of sea shanties that draw upon the mystical powers of the sea.
Uh-oh, how do I get my stuff back now? What am I doing? Here we go. All right. Yeah, so that was the Mariner intro video. That's going to be brought into the game here in the... you guys have got me freaking out now. How often do I say in the near future? I say it a lot. I'm going to have to fix that in the near future. I got to stop saying that. I wasn't even aware, people, until you bring it up to me. Well, I don't know if you're lobbing me a softball here or not, but someone's saying, I really love the music for that trailer. Did Bill remaster it? Well, the answer is yes. That is a mastered version of the Cape of Belfast Shanty. And I am proud to say that that flute you hear is by me. I actually played the flute track that was integrated into the rest of the track there for the Cape of Belfast Shanty. And that is its debut, as a matter of fact. I'm a little nervous about it. You know, I am an amateur. But I was pretty happy with how it turned out, and I thought that was very cool. So, all right, can I have someone from the art team on? It's a great idea. Maybe at some point I can. In general, I have found that some of the people most responsible on the art team for the creation are less inclined to want to put themselves out there to the general public for interviews and hype and things like that. Some people like to be on stream. Some people are okay with being on stream. Some people will do it if they have to. And then some people would be like, well, I'd rather not. And that's okay too. Not everyone is suited for kind of the broadcast lifestyle, as it were. And so I don't know. Maybe. Could happen. If there's interest on the part of someone on the team, that would be the easiest way to get to it. We could do perhaps a show or an interview or things like that. We've had people from the art team on during, say, anniversary-related interviews and visits to the channel and things like that, but I tend to find they're a little shy. I don't know if it's because they're artists or what, but they, the idea is cool. The actual implementation, unsure how likely that is. But we have other people directly besides just, say, the art team that are involved in the art. For example, our lead world designer, senior world designer, Scenario, this week looked at Outer Gondor on twitch.tv/LocherStream. And for the next 2 weeks, we have more. So Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, is our casual stroll with Scenario. It's not always weekly, but it's weekly right now in the run-up to Corsairs of Umbar. Next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on Locher Stream, Scenario is going to be going through the Shield Isles. And then in 2 weeks, so not next week, but the week after, is going to be Umbar itself. So great opportunity to see some of the art and landscapes in the real game, as it were, coming up. Yes, I would expect to see Sev on pretty soon. This week he's over on the DDO side. He's on my 4 o'clock stream today. And then we're going to bring him on Locher Stream as soon as it makes sense. Quick programming note, I'm not going to be here next week. There will not be a Court of the Rings next Friday, as I will be out of town. I'm not going to be here. So, no stream next Friday. Could be that he'll come back, it'll be in 2 weeks, although I don't think so, just kind of knowing what I know about our schedules. So my guess is it'll be a couple of weeks yet before Sev gets on Court of the Rings, but it'll happen real soon. All right. Otherwise, just a couple of quick bits of news. Not this week, but next week for our bonus, we have got a 25% XP boost in Hobnanigans. That kicks off on the 5th at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then not too far away either, we've got Harvest Math. That's going to be kicking off at 10 a.m. Eastern on October 12th. I know, we're almost in October. Sunday is Sunday, am I right about that? Sunday is October. Yeah, Sunday is October 1st. Somehow September just went gone. But how did that happen? But it did, and we're already in the month of October, the spooky season. But that means the Harvest Math Festival is coming back on the 12th. There are some new rewards for it. I've been seeing some talk about what those new rewards are, and we're going to be getting some screenshots, I think, too, if possible here. So there is still a couple of weeks yet, well, not quite 2 weeks yet, to get your free daily gold Hobbit gifts. If you're a VIP, they're getting free gold Hobbit gifts through October 10th. So there is still time to take advantage of that if you want to. Otherwise, like I say, we'll have release notes and a whole lot more about update 37.2 next week. We've got a meeting today to make sure that we're on track for next week, but fingers crossed, everything's working out, and we'll be releasing 37.2 next week. That'll have downtime, release notes, and a whole lot more information, so a lot to look forward to there. We've got a full schedule over on twitch.tv/LotraStream all weekend long, so please check out the shows after me. And all weekend. You can find our full schedule over on twitch.tv/LotraStream. I will see you in 2 weeks. Have fun, everyone. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.